Hey y'all, welcome back to the Late Night Vision Show. This is episode number 282. My name is Jason Robertson. I am the owner of Outdoor Legacy and one of your co-hosts here. As always, I've got the other half of the show, Hans from the Hans East Texas YouTube channel. What's going on tonight, sir?
Oh, it is good to be back. Episode 282, we're getting back into the reviews. We took a couple weeks where we were talking about some options for thermal and monocular, thermal scope and monocular combos for a $5,000 budget for hog and coyote hunting. And man, we've got really good response from those shows, but we are back to the reviews. And today we are going to be reviewing the AGM Adders. We got the TS35-640 and the TS50-640 that we're going to be talking about. I've got the TS50 right here in my hand. We've used both quite a bit, but looking forward to getting back into the review and for review season. I know we've got a few coming up, Jason, and we've got a lot of shows that we're planning out we talk about it between now and the end of the year, but it's always a busy time for you and I, especially for the show.
It is, and I apologize for those of y'all that saw me looking down over here. I'm looking at all the last-minute specs here and the things that I realized that I had not written on my note sheet over here. It is, I tell you, this is, it's getting into the fun time of the year when it starts cooling off, and Hans and I were actually just talking about this. We're like kind of mad at the weatherman. He was predicting about 10, 15 degrees cooler for this week than what we've actually got, so we were a little disappointed about that.
I was just thinking, down here in Texas this weekend is the start of bow season for deer. You know, you can use your it's archery season, and I was thinking, well, you know what, I'm going to get my bow out and start practicing. There's 3 or 4 days left. I haven't shot anything with my bow. I just got it last year, and I was talking about it with a buddy today because my wife keeps giving me a hard time because I bought a bow and I haven't used it. And I never realized that I had shoulder problems until I started shooting a bow. But I told my buddy, I was like, I'm going to shoot a doe with my bow this year. And I'm going to mount that doe head on the wall with the arrow in it just so my wife sees it every day and knows that I use that bow. So she can just...
I know your wife, and you will not be mounting that doe head on your wall.
Not the doe head, yeah. We got
That's
the buck
funny.
from a couple years ago, but not
That's
a
right.
doe head.
Not
yeah.
the doe.
So we've got the review. We're going to do this is the Adder, both the Adder 640s. We've already reviewed the 384 resolution Adder, so if you're looking for that, you can go check that out. One of our past episodes, but we're going to be running down the specs. We've got video, the walk around, pros and cons, like the format that we always do. And then we'll be talking about who it's good for, because there's two models. There's a lot of similarities between the two, not a whole heck of a lot of differences. And that's kind of, Jason, as you know, why we just kind of decided to combine the reviews of these optics, because they are so close. I mean, there's just not a lot of differences, but that's okay.
Yeah, I want to say one quick thing about this. This is a show we should have opened with this. The Adders have been out a long time now. They've been on the market. They're standard staples of the thermal industry. Very popular. They sell really, really well. We like them, but we were sitting around and talking about reviews and planning, and one of us, I don't know, said something about, I don't know, something we hadn't done. And we just started looking like, wait a minute, did we never review the Adder 640s?
Yeah.
And in this process, without even spending very much time, we found some more optics we haven't reviewed.
Exactly.
So
there's just been so many. It's hard to keep up.
It is. And the problem is they normally come in spurts. So like you get 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 10 optics all coming in the, a 60-day period.
Yeah.
And we're reviewing, we're keeping up, and you just kind of, something gets pushed to the side, and we're using them and we forget that we didn't review them. I know that sounds crazy, but it happens. This is a perfect example.
And it happens easily because we are using them. We're taking them out and hunting with them for 3 or 4 weeks. And I just did my review of the Adder and that I posted last week, but I've had this thing for a while, hunting with it and getting video and all that kind of stuff. So,
well, another thing is we did a show that was where we compared the Adders, the AGM Adder to the AGM Rattler to the AGM Varmint, 3 different models. And I think in our mind, that's kind of where we were.
Yeah.
So, all right, guys, let's jump into this, and we'll tell you what we got going on today. So, as Hans mentioned, AGM Adder, these are the 640s. There is a TS stands for thermal scope. That's easy. TS35-640 and a TS50 640. So a 35 millimeter and a 50 millimeter. The TS35 is $3,695, and the TS50 is $4,195. So we got about $3,700 and $4,200, kind of rounded up there. They are both, because they're again, they share most similarities. So they're both a 640 by 512 thermal resolution, 12 microns. They're sub 35 millikelvins. They're a 50 hertz refresh rate. And the TS35 is a 2-power base magnification, and the TS50 is a 2.5 power base magnification. So that's the real difference here between these, and that's really kind of where it ends. Is you get a 2-power in the TS35 for $3,700. You get a 2.5 power for $4,200 in the TS50. When it comes to field of view, horizontal field of view at 100 yards on the TS35 is 66 feet, and the horizontal field of view on the TS50 is a smaller 46 feet at 100 yards. Again, that's because it has a higher base magnification. When we get into detection ranges, these are what the manufacturers list. And I don't know about these numbers. I'm not saying they're made up, but I sometimes think that these manufacturers just put really big numbers here because it's kind of hard to determine exactly what the detection range is. Normally, I don't know exactly how AGM does it. Normally, it's a human-sized target standing up and you seeing some little speck or dot of heat. But they're saying on the TS35, it's 1,968 yards, and it's 2,843 yards on the TS50. I don't really know. Those yardages are so far, it doesn't matter. You're not going to be using your scope that far. They each do have digital zoom, a 1x, 2x, 4x, and 8x. So again, digital zoom on top of the optical magnification. They both have OLED display screens at a 1024 by 768 resolution. They have 5 different reticle types in 4 colors. Then they have red hot, black hot, white hot, and a fusion color palette. They both have shot activated recoil, or we call it recoil activated video. They call it shot activated recoil, or recoil activated recording. I wouldn't, we'll talk about it a little bit more. I'm not a big fan. I don't trust it. How about that? Well, they both have picture in picture. They both have Wi-Fi. You can use the AGM app to stream to your phone or your tablet. They have a standby mode, and they both record video and audio internally. When you get down here, this is where everybody really wants to know, and it's battery life. Battery life is phenomenal on these units. You're going to be looking at, on average, over 14 hours on maybe over, is it 14 or 15? I was thinking about what her test.
I always hate saying it because it was a ridiculous amount of runtime. But yeah, the test that we did was a little over 15 hours.
Okay. We'll just say we're 14. And we got over 15 on the bench test. Right. Now, either way, it's a long, long time. This is a bench test. This is done indoors, sitting here on a desk, just running. All right. So that's a best case scenario, but that's stupid long time. The scope does have internal batteries you cannot take out. You can recharge them by plugging the scope into the wall. That's these batteries we're talking about to get this very, very long run time. According to AGM, it's 2 18650 batteries that are built in. Also, the unit does allow for a CR123A unit to be a battery to be put in the unit from the side, and you can get about an hour and 15 minutes of extra run time out of that. We'll talk a little bit more about that. I don't want to bog down the specs. I want to explain how that works so you kind of know what to expect there. So amazing battery life. Again, it can be charged up by just plugging it into the wall, USB-C port. Operating temperature is down to negative 22 degrees Fahrenheit. They're both fully IPS67 rated. That means completely waterproof, submersible to 3 foot for 30 minutes. The TS35 weighs 1.96 pounds. The TS50 weighs 2.14 pounds. And the TS35 is about 16 inches long. The TS50 is about 16 and a half inches long. And there was something else that I felt like I should say, and I forgot. I know what it is. They come with, in the box, from AGM, a $250 American Defense Manufacturing Recon Quick Detach Return to Zero mount. Our favorite mount for 30 millimeter optics, day optics, night optics. This is our favorite mount. We sell them for other scopes that don't come with them. AGM includes it. Again, this is a legit, probably the best American made QD 30 millimeter mount on the market today, and you are getting it included in these prices. So when you look at this $3,700 and $4,200, I'd basically take $250 off of that, because that's what you're paying for the scope. Everybody else is having to buy these mounts separately.
Absolutely. And I'll add one more thing, because while you're thinking about that, the operating temperature, that's one of the lowest operating temperatures of all the scopes that we know of on the market. I remember when we were reviewing the Adder 384 resolution, how we were, that was one of the big things, was because that's a big deal for people, obviously predator hunters up north that are dealing with very, very cold conditions. And these scopes being able to operate in those, that kind of climate is very, very important. But yeah, that's phenomenal.
I left off something huge, but listen. I think I should get a freebie on this one, because I'm literally going off their spec sheet, and it's not on their spec sheet.
Yeah.
These units have a 5-year warranty. This is the 5 years. AGM has their main facility is here in Texas, and so it's a U.S. warranty. You're going to deal with somebody here 5 years. That's a big deal, guys.
Yeah,
so
5-year warranty.
I wanted to add that. Yep.
The AGM stuff is always jam-packed with value. You talk about the 5-year warranty now, which is new, starting January 1st of 2023 on the 384 and 640 resolution optics. But also the fact that, gosh, for the longest time, they've all come with the American Defense Manufacturing mounts. I mean, it's just a lot of value packed in there, on top of the fact that it's got a good price. So let's walk around the scope real quick. I'm sure many people that are watching are familiar with the Adders. If you're not, it's a tube style design, 30 millimeter tube. Now it will mount with any set of 30 millimeter rings, but why would you want to go do that when then this one comes with the nice American Defense Manufacturing mount? It is a one-piece mount cantilever with locking throw levers on it, so it's going to lock in place. Yes, I know you do too, Jason. Do the mounts work? Man, I'm going to tell you, I was testing a scope the other day, a scope that I've taken on and off no fewer than 6 times, and went out and shot a coyote at 125 yards and was dead on. I mean, and so Jason and I are constantly removing scopes, putting scopes back on, switching them, and these mounts do work. They do return to zero, absolutely, and you will not have a problem. Now, the big difference in the look of the scope between the 35 and the 50 really is the size of the objective lens. So this is the 50 millimeter objective lens. You got the 35, but really the only difference between those is that magnification and the field of view. So the 50 millimeter is not going to make it have any significant better picture image. Really, it just affects the magnification and the field of view. But you've got your menu dial and button on the left-hand side of the scope. You've got your USB port right here on the right-hand side. This turret on the right is for your USB-C plug, and then you've got your CR123 battery compartment right here on top. You've got a removable rubber eye cup with an eyepiece diopter focus and an objective lens focus dial up here on the front. And then on top, you got a 3-button layout right here close to the eyepiece. Again, 3 buttons, on, off, power, that kind of stuff. Just your main functions, but your more advanced settings are going to be in the main menu. And that's what we got here.
Okay.
Plastic lens cup, or lens cover. That's about it.
Okay. I interrupted you there. Sorry,
That's
I
all right.
thought you were done. All right. I want to jump in because I want to talk and get this out of the way. We always talk about our pros and our cons and what we like and what we would like to change. There's no perfect optic out there. There's always something we'd like to change, and even if it's minor. But I want to get that out of the way. Nobody likes to talk about the negatives, but we want to talk about the positives. But we want to be honest, and that's what we're here
Absolutely.
for.
Yeah.
So a couple things, and this is first not going to necessarily be a con. It's going to be an explanation. Hans showed you there where the CR123A battery goes into the side of this optic. The way this works is, man, my throat is all getting scratchy. Hold on here. Oh,
Well,
sorry.
You gonna make it?
Now, I think I'm going to make it.
Well, let me do this. Let me talk about my con, and you want to talk about the battery after that, after you get your.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll go over here and
really,
cough.
the only con, and I think I know where Jason's going, but I want to address the buttons right here on top. I don't know if you can tell in the video, pretty flat. On there, there's a little bit of a ridge right here in between that's kind of dividing the buttons, but otherwise pretty flat. My only negative is I think the buttons are a little bit, I want to say a little bit difficult, but at night in cold weather with gloves on, that might be a little bit of a challenge. I'm just going to go ahead and throw that out there with finding those buttons, knowing that you're pushing the right one. All these tube style scopes with gloves on is difficult, but I think this is maybe a little bit more difficult because of the buttons, and it's mainly just because they're flat, really. It doesn't really have a lot to do with the spacing. It's just there's not a lot of defining differences between what button you're pushing. So that's really my only negative. And even though I was using and testing the scope in non-glove weather, I just know that once you put on a throw-on pair of gloves, it's going to be a little bit more of a challenge. But go ahead. You all cleared up?
Okay, I'm back. Maybe
Okay,
I'm
he's
not going to
back.
be all coughing over here. Sorry about that. All right. So the way you might think this works is you would think, okay, if my scope goes dead, I can put a CR123A battery in the side and I can get a little extra runtime. Not exactly. You've got to have the CR123A in the scope before it goes dead. So I guess the best way I could explain it is this. That battery has enough power to run the scope. It doesn't have enough battery power to crank the scope. Does that make sense? It won't turn it on from being dead, but it will run it longer. And a lot of your external, or I should say removable batteries on these type of scopes, they get used first. This does not. It gets used last. So again, this is kind of like your backup a gas can. It's just a little extra gas. But what has to happen is the battery must be present when the scope goes dead. When the scope goes dead, the internal battery, I should say, it will just hot swap over to the CR123A and it will run until it runs out. Now, a workaround to that is the scope will run off of any USB battery pack. So if you've got a USB battery pack there, you can plug that in, get the scope running, stick in your CR123A, put the battery cap on, and now you're running off of that. And it'll should hot swap over to the CR123A. Again, it's not a big deal, but it's something that Hans and I kind of figured out when we were testing these scopes. We would put in the CR123A and we're like, it's not even showing. Doesn't look like it's using it. Then we'd run the scope completely out. We'd put in the CR123A and it wouldn't come on. Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
That's how we got with AGM and figured out exactly how it works. So I don't think it's a big deal. I'm just going to use this here maybe on my con and say I wish maybe it worked differently. I do understand since you're only going to get an hour and 15, 20, 30 minutes, depending on the quality of the battery that you use and how cold the weather is. I can understand why you wouldn't want to use that first. You wouldn't want to stick that in there and it only lasts for, an hour. And it's like, well, there went my battery. Now, this is your backup, gas can.
Right.
At the end of the day, I'm going to go over here and I guess I hate to, switch to the pros, but I've got to say this, the scope redeems itself by having the longest internal runtime of any thermal scope that we've used to my knowledge, unless you can think of another one, Hans. But
Man,
so
no, you're right.
So really long. All right, I'm going to give one more. I'm going to say it's my con. It's a little annoyance to me, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to switch it and make it a pro as well. So I think when you're going through the menu if you, to me, and maybe it's just because of the experience with the other thermal scopes, some of the things that AGM, the way it names things in the menu is weird. They're not things that they don't have the names that I'm used to seeing. So I guess give you one: flat field correction, or FFC. In the industry, that's normally called calibration. It's normally what we would call that. It's where the scope calibrates itself. The thermal sensor does, and keeps it clean. It's every scope's got it, but it's just that there's some of the names are weird. Now, so the pros that I'm going to turn this and flip it and say, I will say that AGM optics are probably some of the easiest to use if you've never used a thermal scope. If you're not familiar, you don't know. Most people get into the menu and they figure things out, even if they don't know what these things are in any brand. So it doesn't matter to them. They're not confused. But one thing I think AGM does a really good job at is they include a paper manual with the optic, and they very simply and clearly lay out what each of these things do. So if you don't know what FFC is, it tells you it's flat field correction. It tells you what that does. And so if you're still confused, that's understandable. We're glad to help explain that if you buy your scope from us. But I would say it's a pro and a con. I think they name some things weird in their menu. Again, you're only going to notice that, I think, if you've used a lot of other thermal scopes. But at the same time, the menu is very simple to use, and their instruction manual is very good and explains what each of those things are.
Yeah. No, it's exactly right. So continuing on with that, Jason, let's talk about some more pros, because there is a long list of this. Where do you want to start? I mean, the value, the price point, the fact that obviously it comes with a 5-year warranty with the American Defense Manufacturing mount. What
I'm
else?
done. That was it. You got my list. Yeah. Value, 5-year warranty, American Defense mount. Boom. Really, right there.
Let's talk about this, because I don't think we've probably spent enough time on it. Let's talk about the picture quality and some ID ranges. Yep. So you would think, like, man, okay, well, this is for a 640 scope. It's on the lower end of the price scale. There's a lot of value in here, but what can I realistically do? So I would say, the 35 being a 2-power base magnification optic, the ID range, I would say, low end on a small animal is probably going to be around 400 yards. On a larger animal like a hog, 500, maybe 600 yards on a high end, because it's a lower magnification. On the 2.5 power, I don't know, man. Probably it's going to be, you could probably add about 50 yards or 100 yards to that. So maybe 500 low end, maybe 650, 700 on the high end on a large animal with that. But the picture quality on it is really good. I would say just as popular as the Adder 384s were, and the picture quality, how good they are in that price range. These are just as good in the 640 price range, comparable to other optics. So you are getting a good optic with good picture quality with I would say decent ID range. It's not blowing any ID ranges off the charts with compared to any other scopes, but I think it's fair for what you're getting.
I think you just underplayed that when you called it decent. I would call it really, really good ID ranges, especially for that price. Yeah, those are very, very good. Yeah. I think that the big thing, and this is where I want to kind of go into, is I know that there's a lot of people that are not familiar with thermal optics, and they're familiar with the daytime stuff, and they hear these reviews and they hear us talk about a scope being a 2-power and one being a 2.5, and they say, what fool is going to pay, whatever, $300-$500 more to get a half a power more? There's no difference in that. So who cares? There is a difference. And the way that I can prove to you that there's a difference is that you're giving up about 30% of your field of view by going to that higher magnification. And that's even with it having a larger lens. The difference in 2 and 2.5, it's not like crazy, okay? But it's significant. There is a difference there. And I think that the question that I know, you and I both, and Ashley, our other salesmen, get a lot is when it comes to this is which one of these do I need? And any of the scopes we're talking about, magnification to us is such a big deal. I don't think that the difference in 2 and 2.5 is near as important as 2 and 3 power. I think a guy can get a 3 power and it can be exactly the wrong scope for him, or he can get a 2 power and it can be exactly the wrong. I do think this gives you a little wiggle room each way, but let's talk about which of these magnifications we would generally recommend to who.
So, you're right. The 3 power being a more dramatic difference between that and a 2 power base magnification optic. This just being a 2, between the difference between a 2 power and a 2.5 power. We generally on this show, and as guys that have spent a lot of years hog hunting and coyote hunting down here in Texas. Now our conditions are a lot different down here in this part of the state than even in other parts of Texas, or especially in other parts of the country. We don't have a lot of wide open fields, so we could use anything from we used to use a 1.5 power base magnification scope and thought it was the best thing ever, and so I think our tastes have changed over the years, as well as the industry. We're starting, maybe it's because we're getting older, Jason. We just liking a little bit more. I like a little bit more magnification than even you do. But generally, I would say the 2 power is going to be for somebody, again, who is, I'll say it this way, whose average shooting is under 150 yards for sure. And whether that's hog or coyote hunting. And I don't want people to think, well, man, I can only, I need to be able to shoot out to 200 to 300 yards. Yes, you can take a 200 or 300 yard shot with a 2 power scope. You just don't want that to be your average. So if your average shooting is below 150 yards, but even closer, maybe to 100 yards, the 2 power, the 35 millimeter is going to be ideal for you. I'd say the 2.5 power is going to be somebody who, again, average shooting 150 yards and under, but maybe more close to 150 yards. I think the 2.5 power is going to be fine. If your average shooting is over 150 yards on average, and you're shooting at small animals like coyotes or predators, then we probably need to be talking about, an AGM scope that's a 3 power, and it may even be lower resolution, but that's okay. You'd rather have an optic that has the correct base magnification and not necessarily the highest resolution. And there are other AGM products that we can talk about, but I would say that, 150 yards and in on average for both of these scopes, with the 35 millimeter being closer to somebody whose average shot is around 100 yards. The 2.5 power, somebody whose average shooting is around 150.
I agree with that. Well, one more thing I want to bring up, just in case people are not familiar with thermals, is if you look at the specs on these, you're going to say, wait a minute, the 35, it has digital zoom. They both do. It goes to 16 power. The 50 goes to 20 power. I mean, 20 power is plenty. I can shoot 1,000 yards. Here's the problem. The problem is it's digital zoom. This is the way, thermal optics work. And when you start zooming up, you're losing your resolution, you're losing your image quality, your clarity. It's getting grainy. It's getting harder to identify sometimes. When you reach this breakover point of like, hey, I need to zoom in a little to see what this is. You zoom in, okay, it's getting grainier, but I can see. Then you reach this point of like, okay, now it's worse. I can't see. I'm just getting this grainy blob. So I would just make the point that in case people don't know, just because it says 2 to 16, you're probably not going to be using that over about 8. 2 to 10, you're probably not going to, 2 to 20, you're not going to use it over probably about 10. When you get to those very high digital zooms, it's just going to be very grainy. And that's true of any thermal optic we're talking about here when you just zoom all the way up.
I'll say this about, and you may have something different to say, but the adders have been on the market, like you said, for quite a while. And I would say the adder models has been AGM's probably their most popular model, especially in the last year. So these things, there's a lot of them in circulation. The adders are very popular. I have not had one person call up and say, I've got an adder and I just don't like the picture quality on it. I mean, everybody, they love the adders. They think the picture quality is great. They love the value for it. And that's a reason why it's their most popular scope, because of again, all the pros that we talked about. But it kind of makes you wonder. It's like, okay, and it gets you excited for the future, but you wonder at the same time, where does it go from here? What's the next step up in evolution for AGM and what they're going to be coming out in the future, because their optics, especially this Adder, is so good. How do you build on top of that? So it makes you kind of wonder, okay, coming up for 2024, what's going to be coming out. But these Adders have been rock solid, and they've been
Very good.
very, very popular.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I know we've already said this, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I think there's a lot of value in these optics. You're getting a 30 millimeter tube. This is this kind of scope that's going to work good on an AR-15 style rifle or a bolt gun. All right, so you're getting the versatility of using it on either rifle type. What I think they're not good for is they're not good to use as a handheld, because it's just a big long scope, like using a daytime scope, as a handheld. You wouldn't do that. So that's not logical, but good for any type of rifle.
Yeah.
You've got, oh, by the way, we didn't mention the recoil rating. Their 308, recoil rating. That was not in the specs either. I'm going to go back over their specs. So you've got,
we're going to have to send a very strongly worded email to Trent. Trent, I know you're watching this, so you're getting a strongly worded email very soon.
That's from right. Jason. Strongly worded of oops. And you know what? As before we strongly word that, I should go back and make sure that I did.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right.
It might be on this list.
Might need to double check
I crossed out over here that I didn't read. It might have been on that.
Yeah.
No, but 308 recoil. So listen, that's most guys are not shooting with anything bigger than a Creedmoor or a 308 when they're hunting. You've got, again, I beat the dead horse, $250 American Defense mount that comes with it. You've got some, if not, I'm scared to say the longest because there may be something I'm forgetting, but if not the longest, one of the very longest battery life available on a thermal scope like this. A great image quality, and you're doing all this for a really good price with a 5-year bumper to bumper warranty. There's a reason that these are very popular optics, and it's, there's just, I think we keep saying it, but value for the dollar. And can you get a better scope out there on the market? You can, and you're going to pay for it. Get your wallet out, because you're not going to get better than this and get it in this price range. It's not even going to be close.
Yeah, I mean,
so I think there's a lot there.
The other comparable optics of similar specs, you're looking at, $1,500 more in some respects. So, if you are interested in the Adders, if you're interested in the 640s, if you want to know if this optic's right for you, if there's something else right for you, the best thing to do, y'all, is give us a call. You can talk to me. You can talk to Ashley. Heck, you might even find Jason around there someday. You can give us a call, 877-350-1818, outdoorlegacygear.com. We'd love to talk to you about these optics, because we hear from people that are frustrated, and they say, I want to go somewhere where I can put my hands on all of these optics. And it's tough making a decision, a multi-$1,000 decision off of specs, off of a sheet of paper. It's very difficult. You got to have firsthand experience to really understand and know exactly what you're getting and if it's right for you. So the only other alternative, instead of you being able to look through every scope on the market, is to talk to people that have looked through almost every scope on the market. Definitely, we've hunted with everything that we sell and review. So we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to earn your business and your trust. Again, 877-350-1818. You can find all of our content for the Late Night Vision Show on our website, thelatenightvision.show.com. Obviously, if you're watching on YouTube, congratulations, you found us. You did a good job. You can subscribe and make sure that you don't miss any of our episodes. We got a new show that comes out every Thursday morning. It's been that way now for several years. And it's a pleasure to bring it to you. Also, you can find us on Facebook and on Instagram, The Late Night Vision Show. You can find Jason with Outdoor Legacy on all the Instagram stuff and Facebook stuff and all the Facebook forums. Jason is a very good moderator on some of these discussion groups. And I'll say this, I don't say that sarcastically. Well, I kind of say it sarcastically, but
You do.
Jason, I will say, has a lot more patience than I do. I look at some of these Facebook forums and I just shake my head in pure disgust.
Let me
But
say this: I'm only a moderator on one group that I was asked to help with.
yeah, but you're like a hall monitor.
and-
You're like a unelected hall monitor
No,
on others. I would say.
let me tell you, if yeah, no, I shouldn't say what I think.
Well, here's what I was
flip
going to.
the switch on Facebook. If they gave me the big red switch, I'd flip the switch because there is I don't. We're not even talking about just thermal scopes, just anything. There's way more misinformation than there is correct information. I'll say that. I don't care what your topic is.
Oh yeah. Well, here's what I'll say in the compliment that I was going to give you. There are a lot of very legitimate people out there that have questions and they need help. They need help, and they go to Facebook. That's their outlet, and that's the outlet they choose. And there are a lot of good questions, but there are, like you said, there are a lot of bad answers. And
there's way more bad answers than good answers.
Jason will take the time, and yes, we do this for selfish reasons. We have a company. Jason owns Outdoor Legacy. We're trying to sell optics, but when he answers a question, it is the honest answer, and it's not a Outdoor Legacy billboard. And so many times you get guys that ask a question, and some of these guys don't even answer the question. They just put the company name and the phone number. And Jason will sit there and answer the question and type up. And I'm like, man, there's no way I could type as much as you're typing this answer for this one question. So kudos to you, man. You get the gold star because you take the time and answer questions and help people out. But at the end of the day, the best thing to do is call us. We'd love to talk to you. You can find me. Yeah, you can find me on YouTube, Hans ETX, also on Instagram and Facebook. I just released my review of this Adder 640 a couple weeks ago. Got a lot of other reviews up there, so you can check it out. And I don't think I've missed anybody. Oh, Ashley. I missed Ashley. Instagram and Facebook. That's Rowe ETX, ROWE_ETX, and on YouTube at the same thing. So there you go.
All right, guys. Listen, we appreciate y'all watching this show. Hans said it. You may still have questions. You may be confused. You may not know what you want or where you need to start. Just give us a call. We'd love to have your business. 877-350-1818. And again, we can help you figure out what you need and then help you all the way through the purchase. And then after you buy it, help you if you need anything then. So we appreciate you watching. We hope to see y'all again next week. Same place, same time. Between now and then, y'all stay safe in the fields and keep making those bacon pancakes.